My husband gifted me a $10,000 wedding dress, but on our big day, my jealous mother-in-law secretly set it on fire. As I fell to the ground in shock, my husband heroically put out the flames and saved me. But what happened next? I plotted the ultimate revenge and gave her a surprise she never saw coming. I still remember the day I first met Lucas. It felt like everything around me slowed down, and all I could see was him. Lucas Stone, the 28-year-old professional baseball player, was tall, charming, and had a smile that could light up any room. But what I loved most about him wasn't just his looks. It was the way he treated me. Lucas was kind, patient, and he made me feel special in ways I hadn't experienced before. I was 27, working as an office assistant in New York City. My life had been pretty ordinary up until that point. I wasn't someone who stood out in a crowd, and I didn't have any extraordinary skills or talents. I had a solid job, good friends, and a loving family. But something was missing. That something was Lucas. We met at a mutual friend's party. He was there with a group of his baseball teammates, and I was just with a couple of friends from work. From the moment we started talking, I felt an undeniable connection. We had so much in common. Our love for adventure, trying new things, and, strangely enough, our shared interest in family values. He was everything I had ever wanted in a man and more. We quickly became inseparable. As our relationship blossomed, we talked about the future. I had never been in a relationship where I felt so cared for and cherished. Lucas made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. And soon, we started talking about marriage. It was a dream come true, and I couldn't wait for the day when we'd say our vows. He was everything I needed, and I thought that nothing could ever go wrong. But of course, no relationship is without its challenges. The first real problem we faced didn't come from us, but from Carol, his mother. I had heard about her before. Lucas had mentioned her, but he always spoke about her with respect, even though there was a hint of tension in his voice when he did. Still, I didn't know much about her until I met her in person. Carol Stone was a woman in her early 50s with a commanding presence. She had sharp features, always perfectly styled hair, and her demeanor could easily be described as cold. The moment I met her, I felt a strange chill run down my spine. It wasn't that she was rude, but something about her felt distant, almost judgmental. She didn't make me feel welcome, and that bothered me. "I'm glad you could finally meet my mother, Jennifer," Lucas said, trying to break the silence that had settled between us during our lunch together. But Carol barely looked at me when she replied, "Nice to meet you." Her tone was flat, and her eyes didn't meet mine for more than a few seconds. I could feel the discomfort in the air, but Lucas kept reassuring me. "Don't worry about her. She's just a little protective." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off with Carol. A few weeks after that awkward meeting, Lucas surprised me with an extravagant gift, a wedding dress. Not just any wedding dress, though. This one was worth $10,000, a luxurious gown that shimmered with every step. I was ecstatic when he gave it to me. It wasn't just the price tag that made me happy, it was the thoughtfulness behind it. He knew I had always dreamed of wearing the perfect dress on my wedding day, and he made it come true. The moment I saw the dress, I couldn't contain my excitement. "Oh my gosh, Lucas. This is amazing." I gasped, my hands trembling as I ran them over the delicate fabric. "I can't believe you did this for me." He smiled warmly. "You deserve it, Jennifer. I want everything about our wedding to be perfect for you." But little did I know, that dress would become a symbol of much more than just our love. As soon as Carol found out about the dress, I could sense the tension in the air. She didn't react like I thought she would. I expected her to be happy for us, but instead, her face turned stone cold when she heard how much Lucas had spent on it. "That dress is too much, Lucas," she said, her voice tight with restraint. "You don't need to spoil her with such extravagant things." I was stunned. Spoil me? I had never thought of the dress that way. It wasn't about spoiling me. It was about making me feel special, loved. But Carol didn't see it that way. Lucas, however, was unwavering. "I don't care, Mom. Jennifer deserves it. She's my fiancée, and I love her. This is my choice, and I'm standing by it. The more I saw Carol's disapproval, the more I began to feel a chill between us. I didn't want to cause any rifts, but there was an undeniable tension growing. I couldn't help but wonder, why did Carol seem so angry about a dress that was meant to make me happy? And then came the wedding day. I stepped into the venue in my $10,000 wedding dress, and all eyes were on me. The guests were in awe of how beautiful I looked, and I couldn't have felt more proud. I had Lucas by my side, and we were about to start our new life together. As people approached to congratulate me, I shared with them how thoughtful Lucas had been. "He gave me this beautiful dress," I said, beaming with happiness. The compliments were endless, and I couldn't help but feel like the luckiest woman alive. But then, just as everything seemed perfect, Carol came up to me, her expression unreadable. She gave me a tight hug, whispering in my ear, "Your time is over now." I froze for a moment, unsure of what she meant, but I didn't have time to process it. Suddenly, I felt a strange warmth at my back. The next thing I knew, my wedding dress was on fire. Everyone screamed, and I turned around to see Carol standing there, holding a cigarette lighter with a cold smile on her face. My heart raced as I realized what had just happened. I looked desperately toward Lucas, who was standing far away with his friends. When he saw what was happening, his eyes widened in horror, and he rushed toward me, pushing through the crowd. The flames quickly consumed the outer layer of my dress. Lucas reached me just in time and bravely started to put out the fire. The fabric was burned, and I felt the heat searing into my skin. I had some minor burns on my arms, but I didn't want to go to the hospital. "I'm fine, Lucas." "Really?" I said, trying to reassure him, but inside, I was in shock. What had just happened? How could Carol do something so horrible? The wedding was a blur after that. I changed into a regular dress, but the feeling of betrayal lingered. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't fully understand it yet. That night, as Lucas and I returned home, I overheard a conversation between him and his mother. Carol was furious with Lucas, and her words chilled me to the bone. She didn't care about the dress catching fire. Instead, she was angry that he had put out the fire in the first place. "I didn't want to see that expensive dress on her," Carol shouted at Lucas. "Why did you give her something so extravagant?" And in that moment, I realized just how deep Carol's jealousy ran. I had been so blinded by love that I didn't see it sooner. Now, I understood the real reason for her coldness. She didn't want me to be the center of attention. She didn't want Lucas to love me more than her. That night, lying in bed, I made a decision. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't let her control our lives. And Lucas, despite his love for me, seemed to be caught in her web. I had to get away from it all. And that's how my journey of revenge and self-empowerment began. But it wouldn't be easy. It was only just beginning. The days after the wedding were a blur. I was still trying to process what had happened. The flames, the dress, and Carol's cold words haunted me. I couldn't understand how someone who was supposed to be family could hurt me like that. But Lucas? He seemed so unfazed by it all. He brushed it off like it was nothing, and honestly, I didn't know how to feel about that. After the wedding incident, things between Lucas and me started to change. There was an unspoken tension hanging over us. We tried to go back to normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I had burns on my arms, but they were nothing compared to the emotional scars that Carol had left. Lucas tried to be supportive, but it felt like I was the one doing all the emotional labor in our relationship. I remember one evening, about a week after the wedding, when Lucas and I were sitting on the couch. I could tell he was uncomfortable, his eyes flicking nervously between me and his phone. Finally, he spoke up. "Jennifer, we need to talk about something." My heart skipped a beat. I could already guess what it was. "Carol, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been thinking a lot about my mom. And the way she's been acting," Lucas said, looking down at his hands. "I know she's upset about the dress. And I just want you to understand, she's not used to sharing me with anyone. I think it's hard for her." I stared at him, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Was he seriously defending her behavior? Was he so blind that he couldn't see how toxic his mother was? Lucas, it's not just about the dress, I said, my voice trembling. It's about everything. The way she treated me. The way she made me feel worthless. That's not normal. He looked at me, his eyes softening. I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. But she's my mom. I can't just cut her off like that. Why not? I asked, frustrated. She's been controlling you your whole life, and now she's trying to control our relationship. Why are you so scared of her? Lucas flinched at my words. I'm not scared, Jennifer. But she's been there for me my whole life. She's my family. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. And I'm supposed to just accept that? I'm supposed to accept her mistreatment of me because she's your family's? He fell silent. I knew he was trying to understand, but it wasn't enough. The more I thought about it, the more it became clear. I was losing him. I was losing him to a woman who wasn't even willing to respect me as his partner. The next day, I overheard another conversation. This time, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. It just happened. I was walking through the house when I heard Lucas and his mother talking in the living room. Carol's voice was sharp, her tone angry. You really let her get to you, didn't you? Carol spat. You let her ruin everything. That dress, that wedding, she doesn't belong in our family. She's just a distraction. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like a slap to the face. Carol was so jealous of me, so bitter, that she couldn't stand seeing me with her son. And Lucas? He didn't say a word. He didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for me. Mom, please. Lucas's voice was strained. Stop. I'm trying to make this work. I love Jennifer. And I love you. But you've always been my priority, Carol said coldly. And if you really think she's the one for you, then why did you give her such an expensive dress? Why would you spoil her like that? I felt a wave of anger rush through me, and I couldn't help it. I had to speak up. I walked into the living room, my face flushed with emotion. Why do you care so much about a dress? I demanded, my voice trembling with frustration. Why does it bother you that Lucas loves me? Why do you want to ruin everything between us? Carol turned to look at me, her expression a mixture of annoyance and disdain. Because you're a distraction, Jennifer. A beautiful, expensive distraction. But you'll never be part of this family. Not really. I couldn't believe my ears. How could she say that to me? How could she just dismiss me like I was nothing? Lucas, we need to talk, I said, my voice shaking. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not. But Lucas just looked at me, his face torn. Jennifer, please, I'm trying. You don't understand. This is hard for me. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I couldn't stand it. I needed to get away from all of this. I needed to clear my head. I went to my parents' house that night, feeling like everything was falling apart. I sat in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. It wasn't just Carol anymore. It was Lucas, too. I was beginning to realize that I could never be happy with someone who couldn't stand up for me. I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own relationship. That's when I made up my mind. I couldn't live this way anymore. I had to get away from Carol, from Lucas, and from all the manipulation and control. I decided that I needed a divorce. But there was something more. Something I had to do for myself. I couldn't just walk away without confronting the truth about what Carol had done. I would fight back. I would take action. I couldn't let Carol get away with what she had done to me. It wasn't easy. The decision to divorce Lucas felt like a weight had been lifted, but at the same time, it was terrifying. I loved him, I truly did, but I had to face the truth. Carol wasn't just controlling. She was toxic. She had no respect for me, and no matter how much Lucas claimed to love me, he was always going to choose her over me. The way he couldn't stand up to her, the way he let her tear us apart, it was something I couldn't ignore any longer. I spent the next few days at my parents' house, trying to sort through everything. I felt like I was in a fog. I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding, about the fire, about Carol's cold, calculating words. I could still hear them in my mind, and every time I replayed the incident, my heart sank all over again. But then, as I lay in bed one night, an idea began to form. I had to get proof. I needed something solid to show Lucas, something undeniable, something that would force him to see who his mother really was. The next morning, I dug out my phone and started going through the footage from the wedding. I had recorded everything, thinking it would be a sweet memory for us to look back on. But now, I wasn't sure if I would ever want to look at those moments the same way again. As I skimmed through the video, my stomach turned, and then I saw it. Right at the moment when Carol hugged me, when she whispered those chilling words in my ear, I saw her hand move towards her pocket, pulling out a cigarette lighter. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't seen it in the chaos of the moment, but there it was. Carol had intentionally set my dress on fire. That was all the proof I needed. I couldn't believe it at first. How could she do this? Why would she do this? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I understood. She wasn't just jealous of me. She was afraid of losing her grip on Lucas, and she was willing to do anything to keep him under her control, even if it meant ruining our lives. With the video as evidence, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I called the police. I didn't want to escalate things, but at that point I had no choice. I wasn't going to let her get away with destroying the most important day of my life, with putting my safety at risk, and with manipulating Lucas for so long. The police took the matter seriously, and an investigation was launched. It didn't take long for them to gather enough evidence to arrest Carol. I was in shock when I got the call. Carol, the woman who had tried to destroy my happiness, was now facing multiple charges. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I knew she was finally going to face consequences for her actions, and anger because of everything she had done to me and Lucas. Lucas was furious when he found out about the arrest. He called me, shouting and accusing me of ruining his family. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had tried to be patient, tried to make things work, but I had given him every chance to stand up for me, and he hadn't. He was just as complicit in her behavior as she was. "I can't believe you'd do this to me," Lucas said, his voice trembling with rage. "She's my mother, Jennifer. She's the only family I have left." "Well, I was your family too," I said, my voice steady but firm. "But I wasn't good enough for you, was I? You chose her over me. And you always will." There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his breathing, ragged and heavy. Finally, he spoke again. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "I'm done, Lucas. I can't live like this anymore." And with that, I hung up. I knew it was over. My marriage was over. But now I felt free. Free from Carol. Free from Lucas. Free from all the manipulation and control. The police eventually charged Carol with multiple offenses, including endangering my safety. She was arrested and sentenced to a long prison term. When I found out, I felt a strange sense of justice. I had taken action. I had fought back. And I had won. But the real victory was that I had reclaimed my life. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even family, dictate my happiness ever again. After everything that had happened, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The chaos, the heartbreak, the fire, it was all behind me. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace settle in my heart. But I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Moving on from Lucas and Carol was only the beginning. Now, I had to rebuild my life. I spent the first few weeks just focusing on myself. I couldn't remember the last time I had done that. My life had always been centered around others, Lucas, his family, trying to keep the peace. But now I was free to live for me. I started picking up the pieces one by one. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in ages, spent time with my family, and for the first time in a long time, I truly enjoyed being alone. But the moment I felt truly empowered was when I looked at the person I had become. I had been through hell and back, and yet, here I was, standing strong. I had fought for myself and won. That was a power I had never known I had. Then, just when I thought the story was over, something unexpected happened. It had been a few months since Carol was arrested, and Lucas and I hadn't spoken since that last phone call. I thought he would be angry, maybe even try to reach out, but he hadn't. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat when I saw that it was Lucas. I hesitated before answering. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this conversation. "Jennifer," Lucas's voice was soft, tired. "I've been thinking about everything, and I know you're probably never going to forgive me, but I need to apologize. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. I was blind to what my mother was doing. I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry."
I didn't know what to say. My heart was torn.
Part of me wanted to scream at him for everything he had put me through, but another part of me just wanted closure. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Lucas," I said, my voice steady, but filled with emotion. "You had your chance. You chose your mother over me every single time. And I'm not going to let that happen again. I've moved on." There was a long silence. I could hear Lucas breathing on the other end, as if he was trying to find the right words. "I understand," he said quietly. "I just want you to know that I've changed. I see now how wrong I was. I'm sorry for everything." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his apology. But I knew deep down that it wasn't enough. He had failed me when I needed him most. And now I was stronger because of it. "Goodbye, Lucas," I said firmly, my voice no longer wavering. "Take care of yourself." And that was it. The final chapter of that chapter in my life was closed. I had freed myself from the man I thought I would marry, from the family that never accepted me, and from a life that was holding me back. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I wasn't going to let anyone control it again. And that included Carol, who, for all her manipulation, had never really understood the power of a woman who was ready to fight for herself. As time passed, I continued to focus on my own happiness. I threw myself into my career, into finding peace within myself, and into doing the things that made me truly happy. I had learned the importance of standing up for myself, of not letting anyone's jealousy or control define who I was. Then, a year later, I found out that I was pregnant. The news took me by surprise, but it filled me with a sense of joy I had never felt before. I was going to be a mother. I was going to raise my child in a world where love, respect, and happiness were the priorities. I remember the day I told my parents. My mom's face lit up when she heard the news, and I could see the pride in her eyes. She knew everything I had been through, and now she saw how far I had come. I had reclaimed my life. And as I sat there with my family and the man who had become my true partner in life, someone who respected me, someone who saw me for who I was, I knew I had made the right choice. My past would always be a part of me, but it didn't define me anymore. I was free. I had won my battle, and I was finally living the life I had always dreamed of.